tired of store-bought bread that tastes like sawdust and costs so much? Do you crave a warm, freshly baked loaf straight from your own oven? Welcome to the old Mayfield place. I'm Snow the farmer's wife, and today I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious, fluffy, and inexpensive bread you've ever tasted. For this recipe, you will need 1 1/4 cup of warm but not hot water, 1 tablespoon of dry active yeast, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 room temperature egg slightly beaten. You're also going to need 4 to 5 cups of all-purpose flour. I start mixing my bread dough in my stand mixer, but if you don't have one, you can mix it in a bowl with a spoon. Add the warm water, yeast, sugar, and vegetable oil in the mixing bowl and stir it together well. Let this sit for 10 minutes to allow the yeast to bloom. Your water should be warm but not hot. You want to activate the yeast, not cook it. If the water is too hot, it can kill the yeast. Blooming yeast is the process of verifying that the yeast is still alive and to activate it quickly by allowing it to sit in warm water for a short period of time. If still active, the yeast will develop foam on the top of the water. After 10 minutes, beat the egg slightly before adding it to ensure that it will completely mix into the dough. Then add the salt and about 3 cups of flour. Mix this well. If you're using a mixer, you will want to scrape down the sides of the bowl periodically to make sure that all the flour is mixed in. Add more flour, a small amount at a time, until you get a very soft and sticky dough. Turn the dough out onto a well-floured board or countertop. This dough will be very sticky, so dust the top with some flour. You will also want to dust your hands with flour so the dough doesn't stick to them while you knead the dough. Kneading is the process of working and stretching the dough to develop its gluten structure. This gives bread its texture and elasticity. This can be done with a mixer, but I like to feel the dough so I can determine when it is done. Using the palms of your hands, push the dough away from you, then fold it back toward you. Repeat this motion, turning the dough a quarter turn each time for about 5 to 10 minutes. The dough is ready when it's smooth and elastic, and it should feel like you're pushing into a marshmallow. It's soft, but it pushes back. Now form the dough into a ball and cover it with a cloth. Allow the dough to rest for about 30 minutes. Allowing bread dough to rest after the first kneading is an important step in the bread making process. This rest period, or first rise, allows the yeast to activate and the gluten to develop further. During this time, the dough will become more relaxed, easier to shape, and the flavor will become more complex. After 30 minutes, cut the dough in half. We're going to be making a 1-pound loaf of bread and 6 hamburger buns from this batch. If you don't need hamburger buns, you can use the other half of the batch to make breadsticks, cinnamon rolls, homemade hot pockets, or pizza. You can also shape the dough into a second loaf and freeze it immediately to bake next week. With the first half of the dough, you need to knead it again to get all the air out. If it is very sticky, you may need to add a bit more flour, but do not add too much since this will make your bread dry. Press the dough into a rectangle that is nearly as long as your bread pan. Roll this rectangle into a loaf shape that will fit into your pan. Place the loaf into your well-greased bread pan with the seam side down. Then knead the second part of the dough until all the air is out of it. Cut the dough into 6 equal parts to make the hamburger buns. If you want smaller buns, divide it into 8 parts. Form each part into balls by pulling the top down and under, then tucking it into itself. Once you have a smooth top, pinch the bottoms together so the ball holds its shape. Once all the balls are formed, transfer them to a baking sheet that has been lined with parchment paper or greased. Flatten the balls to just under a 1/2 inch thick to form the buns. Allow the buns and loaf to rise for about 30 minutes in a warm area. If your kitchen is on the cool side, you can set your oven on 400 degrees Fahrenheit and allow it to warm for 3 minutes, then turn the oven off. This will warm the oven to a temperature that will allow the bread to rise but not bake. Just make sure that the oven is turned off before you put the dough in. Shut the door and come back in 30 minutes to remove the bread and buns. After preheating your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, place the breads on the middle rack and bake for 15 to 20 minutes or until golden brown. Remove from the oven and immediately place on a cooling rack. Cool the bread completely before slicing or it will mash. Yes, warm bread is delicious, but control yourself. That's all there is to it. Making delicious homemade bread products is easy. A bit time consuming, but very easy. But does it save you any money? A loaf of Wonder Bread will cost you $2.72 today, and I can't pronounce half of the ingredients that are in there. And I'm a trained professional. The cost of the ingredients for a loaf of homemade bread is 79 cents, and you know exactly what is going into it. That's a savings of $1.93 per loaf. It's worth it to me. Is it worth it to you? And you can add other ingredients to make it even yummier, such as onion, bacon, or cheese. Thank you for stopping by the Old Mayfield place today. Have a blessed week.